Today, I've got the easiest possible thing that you can do to start changing the mood in your house, to start changing your relationship with your children, to start changing your relationship with your spouse, if you find yourself in a bad spot. And that is just simply this one word advice: smile. Here's the deal. Smiling is easy. Smiling is actually easier than frowning, and smiling changes things. So now here's what I'm going to do. I've given you a simple one-word command, but I don't want this podcast to just be 30 seconds. So I'm going to back up, and I want to give you some theological background to why it's so important for you to smile. You know, if you read through the Old Testament, if you study through the Old Testament, as you get into Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, it is the story of God's creation, of the fall of man, of God choosing a family, of God redeeming that family, calling them out of slavery, calling them out of Egypt, and then creating a people for himself. And in that process, God gives the 10 Commandments, and then God gives the larger law in Exodus and Leviticus. And additionally, even into Numbers, God is still giving them instruction and commands, and they're breaking them all along the way. But we want to go and look back at these commands because we see the ideal in them. And in the middle of the book of Numbers, actually fairly early in the book of Numbers, kind of like right after you get past all of the numbers in the book of Numbers, you find this charge that God gives to Aaron to give to the nation of Israel, which then the Jewish people for thousands of years have been blessing one another with. You find it in Numbers chapter 6, in 24 through 26. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. And so the blessing of God to people, and I think this is pretty profound because remember, at least in this age where this is being written, every nation around them are idolatrous. They're worshiping statues. They're worshiping carvings. They're worshiping images. They are basically in a religious environment of appeasement where you make sacrifices to manipulate the gods around you. The gods around you are angry and upset, and you need to do what you can in order to, kind of manipulate them for favor. And you hope that you don't do something wrong where you're going to make them mad, where they wipe out your family. And yet here is God in the middle of this, calling out the nation of Israel, calling out a people for himself, and then calling a blessing down upon them. And I think it's so incredible when you think of this blessing: the Lord bless you and keep you and make his face shine upon you. And I think that's a pretty incredible thing. We actually end up seeing it played out throughout Scripture. There's all kinds of verses. Let me give you an example of a few. Psalm 31:16, a verse as somebody is calling out to God: make your face shine upon your servant. Show me, save me in your steadfast love. In Psalm 80, verse 3, as Israel is fallen and broken, the cry, restore us, O God, let your face shine that we may be saved. And then in Daniel 9:17, another blessing. Now therefore, O our God, listen to the prayer of your servant and to his pleas for mercy for your own sake. O Lord, make your face to shine upon your sanctuary, which is desolate. There was something profound and powerful in the nation of Israel about the face of God shining upon them. And when we come to the New Testament, we see that there's descriptions of Jesus as the man of sorrows, but basically Jesus was in general accused of being around people that nobody would else be around, being a glutton and a drunkard, being somebody who attracted people to him. That's not a sourpuss. That's not a grump. That's not a complainer. This is God coming in flesh to be able to look people in the face, eye to eye, and the face of God to shine upon them and to smile upon them. One of the most profound things that I can experience as a believer is to realize that God looks at me and loves me, that God turns his face upon me and he smiles upon me. And this smile, the face of God shining on you, This is something that I think that God has wired us to need. It's something that we naturally know, even if, you've not thought about it, you've done it. And I want to just think about this for a minute. When you hold a baby, when you held your own baby, when you hold other people's babies, what do we do when we hold a baby? We don't, for one thing, when you hold a baby, the first thing you do, like you're fascinated with it, you look at it in the eye. You look at him in the eye. You look her in the eye. And what happens to your face? Oh, hey, you're so cute. Your eyes get big, your smile gets huge, and you light up. And it feels like one of the greatest, stimulus response rewards that I can have as an adult is if I can hold a baby in my hands, and if my face can glow up and I can cause that baby to smile. I get no joy out of holding a baby and getting it to cry. I can get joy out of having a baby that will go to sleep. But what lights me up, and I bet what lights you up, is if you have a baby and you hold it close to your face and you light up and your face glows and you cause that baby to smile. It does something in you, and guess what? It's doing something in that baby. We know a lot more about neuroscience now than we ever have before. And there's a few different things as I was researching for this that are happening that it's true. Like babies need to be smiled at. One of the things that scientists have researched is something called mirror neurons. Scientists believe that humans have mirror neurons in their brain. These neurons fire when a person acts and when they observe the same action performed by somebody else. So when I hold a baby and I smile at them, it ignites something in the neurons of their brain to smile back, to learn to smile back. We've been involved in the foster system and adoption system for a number of years. And one of the things that anybody that's involved in foster care for any length of time, whether they're a caseworker, whether they're a counselor, whether they're a foster parent, will tell you that early stage in a child's life is critical, because if they are neglected, if they're passed from family to family, if they're ignored, if they're left in daycare all day, if they're not held, if they're not looked at and smiled, something in the wiring gets broken in a child, and it can take decades to heal what's missing in those first few years of life as the brain is wiring. Brain synapse formation. And in the early stages of a child's life, they are just their brain is creating connections to everything. And when you have a child that is held and looked at and loved and smiled at, it wires them for safety. It wires them for security. And what they're actually finding is it wires them for attachment, and it wires them for joy. There's something about smiling at somebody, genuinely smiling, not your big fake smile, but your genuine smile, especially as they're young, that wires them for joy. I was reading about the joy center activation. The right orbital prefrontal cortex of the brain is sometimes referred to as the joy center. Positive interactions like smiling, playing face-to-face stimulate this area. And when consistently activated, it sets a pattern for a baby to experience, recognize, and return joy interactions. And then stress regulation. The process of smiling at a little baby, smiling at a little kid, it helps to regulate the levels of cortisol, which is a stress hormone, in a baby's system. So when a baby is engaged in joyful interactions, the brain releases oxytocin and endorphins, hormones like bonding and pleasure. This all happens because of smiles, because of joyful interactions. And so it's kind of crazy, because in the very early developmental stages of your child, of my child, of me and you, we need that face-to-face, close shining of a face of love on us. That smile wires our brain for attachment, wires our brain for security, wires our brain for joy. And then I look back in the Bible, and what does it say? What is the blessing of God? It's kind of crazy, because this is the core blessing of the Jewish people. This is one that they pray during the Shabbat, during the Sabbath. This is deep and in there. And it's not, may you be fruitful, may you be prosperous, may you not have harm, may you not have trials or sickness, may you have a lot of money. It's, May the Lord bless you and keep you and cause his face to shine upon you. And so if we can say that spiritually, when God is saying that the blessing that I want you to have is the face of God shining, smiling on you, then how much more on an earthly level do I need to do that? Do I need to model that in my house? Do I need to have the face of Jay shining upon my wife, shining upon my kids? Do I need to smile? Not some fake insincere smile, but I love them. I genuinely love them, and I'm delighted to have them in my house. I'm delighted. I don't like everything they do, but I don't like everything I do. So that's not my standard for people. But you wire your household for joy. You lower the stress level. You bond attachment and safety and security when you look somebody in the eye and you genuinely smile. And so today, simple thing to ask of you, deeply profound theological significance. When you smile at your children, you help wire and condition them to accept the smile of God. When you smile at your spouse, you make it easier for them to accept the smile of God, to believe that God would also smile at them. And when you smile in your household, you reduce stress levels, you increase attachment and security, and you bond them. You're wiring brains. And so I don't know what's going on in your house right now. I guarantee there are hard things. I guarantee there are stressful things. I guarantee there are times when your children are asking you something and you're in the middle of whatever you're doing and you don't even turn to look at them and you give them an answer, and sometimes the answer is hard. Sometimes the answer is harsh. Sometimes it's a complete and sometimes you do have to get your work done. I get that. But I want to encourage you to pause, to stop, to turn, to look them in the eye, to light up your eyes, to smile, and maybe even just pause even before you answer the question and just say, hey, I was just thinking how much I love you. I'm so glad you're around, and I'm so thankful that we belong to each other. And then answer whatever the question is. Smile. Smile with your face, smile with your eyes. And when you smile with your face and smile with your eyes, what I've learned is I actually end up smiling with my voice. I smile with my tone. And when I do that, I change the dynamic of the house. So may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord cause his face to shine upon you and give you peace. May the Lord lift up the light of his countenance upon you. And may you do the same to the members of your household.